Hi guys, welcome back to our Maine homestead. Today, Eddie has gotten the ball rolling and we are down in the basement at my parents' house where we are currently residing while we're building our house. And we are going to get started on some seeds. So we're starting seeds for the 2024 gardening season. This year we are going to be focused a lot on house building, so we've really kind of downsized what we are going to be growing this year in the gardens and the greenhouse.
And we're planting mainly tomatoes and peppers. All of this is probably going in the greenhouse, but we're planting several different kinds of tomatoes, mainly to build back up our tomato stock of what Francesca will can.
He's got his bucket of potting soil. In this black tub here, he's got worm castings from our worm farm. And so here he's mixed up some of the potting soil and the worm castings together. And then of course we've got a bag of seed starting mix
That we'll put on top.
So yeah, we're about to get to it.
Watered these a couple of times and try to get them pretty saturated. They're going to dry out, of course, so you're not going to keep them just soaked like mud. But I've done that a couple of different times. They're ready to plant now. So I thought I would just kind of go over a couple of things, tell you what we're going to be planting. I'll show you how I'm planting it, but that's pretty straightforward. We've done those videos in the past. But just thought I'd give you a quick breakdown of what seeds we are starting. Today, I'm going to be starting vegetable seeds. Eventually, these are all blueberry plants that I've kept under the lights on and off this winter because they're seedlings that I started last winter. They're about a year old now. Some of them look really good. Some of them look okay. Some of them look like they're dead. I don't have any idea, but I'm going to give them a shot and see how they do once it warms up. I've got a few that didn't look good when I moved these here that are still in the greenhouse that went through, like, obviously the freezing of the winter, but they're still in pots like this, so we'll see how they've done over the winter and see if they come back. I'm always curious about how those things work and how it turns out. Anyway, so we're not going to do a ton of vegetables this year. We're going to focus mainly on peppers and tomatoes because we're going to put up a lot of tomatoes at the end of the season. That's the plan. And we do some some peppers as well, and we'll eat some peppers fresh, bell peppers mainly. But Francesca cans jalapenos. They turn out really hot, but they're really good. So first of all, our favorite tomato that we grow is not like a really big tomato, but it's called an Amish paste tomato. And I've saved seeds from it before, but these are some that I bought. These are from 2021, but typically tomato seeds will last about 5 years or so if you keep them in the right conditions. So all I'm going to do is just pop a couple of seeds in each one of these cells. Just go go through each one, lay it down, just drop the seeds on top. That's just one row, but that's just to kind of show you what I do. And then I couldn't find my planting pencil. I usually have a shorter pencil that's I've used years. I think I took it to the Homestead to mark some boards or something this winter when there was some decent weather one day. So it's probably over there. But anyway, I'm going to use one of Francesca's pencils. Hopefully I don't get in trouble for that. She's not here. She's taking Emery to therapy, so I'm just going to do it. So typically when you plant seeds, and all I'm doing is taking the tip of the pencil and planting both of these kind of in the center of the cell. Typically when you plant any seed, kind of the rule of thumb, most seeds, they're not all exactly the same, but you plant them about as deep as about as big as the seed is. So if the seed's 1/4 of an inch, plant that seed 1/4 of an inch deep. That puts the entire seed about 1/4 of an inch below the top of the soil. Then all I do, once I kind of buried them down in there a little bit, take a little dirt from the sides if you need to, but just really just move the dirt so that they're covered. They should be at close enough to the right depth, and then you just want to tamp them down so that they tamp it firm so that the seed comes in good contact with the soil. Again, the top less than inch is the seed starting mix. The rest of it is old potting soil. And so seeds, and I don't know if I said this before, but when you start seeds, they have all the nutrition they need to start growing, to sprout and grow at least their first set of leaves. All of that is stored inside the seed. They don't need any fertilizer. They don't need anything like that until they've sprouted up and at least have the first set of leaves. So that's why the old potting soil really makes no difference. And then once these get that big, I will start fertilizing them. I'll start off with half-strength fertilizer, and then they'll get their nutrition from there. This soil's not fully depleted anyway, so it's healthy enough to start plants, and then these will get transplanted into better soil, into a bigger container. So Amish paste, and I will go through and make notes. I will actually draw a diagram and mark exactly where each one of the seeds, because there'll be probably 4 or 5 different types of seeds in this tray, especially this year when we're not growing as many, because typically we'll grow 10 trays or more, and this year we're only doing 2 for this anyway. So I'm going to plant 15 Amish paste seeds, so hopefully get 12 at least plants out of that. We may get, a lot of times you get all 15. Then I've got a new type of tomato that's called a Mariana's. I'm not sure the Mariana's Peace, but it was really recommended to me. I bought some new seeds this year, first time from a different company, Pine Tree Garden Seeds, just another company in Maine. A lot of their seeds come from plants that are kind of acclimated to Maine, which can be important, especially up here. Our growing season's short. You want to try to grow plants that'll hopefully give you a good chance to do really well in the short period of time that you have to grow in the environment that you're in. So I try to grow seeds from local places. Fedco Seeds is another one. That's where I've almost always ordered my seeds from. I have seeds from another couple of different places that are hard to find, ones that one of these companies didn't have. But anyway, Mariana's Peace is supposed to be a bigger tomato, and people say it's the best tasting tomato they've ever grown, so we'll see. Also, then I'm just going to plant, so I'm doing 15 of those as well. Then also there's one called Speckled Roman, which is a little bit bigger, seems to be average, a little bigger than the Amish paste, but it's another paste type tomato. We really like those. They're very easy to deal with, and you don't have much waste with those if you're canning for like tomato paste, tomato sauces, even whole tomatoes. We can, or Francesca does, I help her sometimes, but a lot of that type of stuff to use all year. Tomatoes are, you can only eat tomatoes fresh here maybe a month and a half at the most. You just can't, they don't ripen quick enough to stay healthy and right, before they start getting degraded by cold weather in the fall. Anyway, and then there's another one called Brandywine, which is another kind of a little bit of a different tasting tomato. These are just two that I'm going to try. I'm just going to start 5 seeds of each. Whatever number of plants we have, I'll put those in the greenhouse as well. And then as far as peppers go, I'm just going to do 10 cells of each of these. Cayenne, I saved some seeds from the cayennes that I grew last year. It was the first year I really had any good success with cayenne, so I'm going to grow them again from the seeds I saved and just see what happens. But we do make red pepper flakes, like that kind of seasoning you put on pizzas, that kind of thing. Francesca made some hot pepper sauce from some of them, and yeah, it's very hot. You don't need much of it, but it's very good. It'll add a lot of flavor and a good kick to anything if you want to just put just a small amount on something. And then jalapenos, I said she cans jalapenos, and they're hot, but they're very good. You don't need many of them. You can cut them into small pieces, so they last a while. But 10 each of those, and then I'll do 10 bell pepper cells. Usually, like I just did those, I put 2 seeds in each cell. That's typically what I'll do, unless I have some doubts about how viable the seed might be, and then I may put more than 2 seeds in each cell, depending on what it is. If it's something I saved and I haven't tried yet, I'll definitely put 2. Sometimes I'll put 3. And of course, once they pop up and you get them to where you want, you just pick the ones you want, and you cut the others off at soil level. And then we're going to grow just for fresh. We have tons of pickles, those type of things that we've canned in the last couple of years. So just grow some cucumbers for fresh use. I'll plant 5 cells, and I'll probably plant 3 or 4 plants in the ground. 3 cucumber plants in my greenhouse gives us way more cucumbers than we can eat once they get ripe, and they'll keep producing until it freezes. So they'll, you get a good bit of time to have fresh cucumbers. And then 5 kale cells, 5 broccoli, 5 turnips. I start all those things in the ground early. All of these things I've mentioned, just because our growing season's so short. If you wait and put especially something like tomatoes or peppers in the ground, once the ground's warm enough to plant, you're never going to get them ripe. So you have to start the seeds early and get them established before you put them in the ground, to give them a jump start so that they can thrive during the warmer weather. Broccoli, turnips. I'm going to plant some potatoes outside like I did last year. And then I've got some onions that I grew last year. They never really got very big bulbs. Probably most of them were silver dollar size, so like maybe 3 inches in diameter at the most. A lot of them are smaller, so I'm going to try to use those. I've never done this. I'm going to try to use those as like onion starts, like an onion you would get in an onion set, although a lot of them don't have tops on them. But some of them have sprouted being here over the winter, so I feel like they will sprout once they're put in the right environment. So I'm just going to try that and see what happens. So that's just another kind of experiment. So those are like the seed starts. One other thing I am going to do, I'm going to start in the next week or two, I'm going to plant 2 containers, so multiple seeds of some type of lettuce, and then 1 container of spinach, and I'm going to do that once a week, kind of in succession format. So once a week I will plant 3 containers of lettuces and spinach and keep that going throughout the summer until obviously it gets too late to plant. But of course I've kind of planted a bunch, let them grow, and then harvested them as we needed them. And then in the fall I'll plant another, which is usually you start about July. I'll plant another set, and we can harvest those until they freeze and or get they get damaged too bad by the freezing weather. So so that's the plan. That's pretty much the garden plan. There you go. Not much out in the garden. All of these things I'm starting here, I'm going to grow in the greenhouse. I made this up last year, and it's just kind of a diagram of my greenhouse. I don't know if you can see that, but and so when they get, that's one thing that'll help you. I can plan, okay, so I know how much room this is going to take up, this is going to take up, you find out what the size of the plant, what the spacing is in between those plants, and then you can kind of plan how much you can fit in these areas. So I've done that, and as I plant these in the ground, I write on this just to confirm that that's what that is. They're pretty easy to tell apart, but when you get into different types of tomatoes, if they're both like a bigger tomato or both a paste type tomato, it can be hard to tell which one's which because they don't all grow exactly like you expect them to grow. Anyway, so I'm going to finish planting these 2 trays, get those going, and then in another week or so we should start having sprouts pretty quick, and I'll give you a shot of that. So I got this tray planted, and so thought I'd just show you how I set things up. You see the grow light, it's been on the blueberries on and off all winter, not very regularly, but from what I understand, blueberries need a dormant period, but these have had not really one because it's warm-ish down here. It's a heated, finished basement. Anyway, the grow light, and I bought all this at the same time. I've had it for 6 years. It's still working flawlessly. Of course, I don't use it a ton. I only use it really for seed starting, and then maybe I use this light a little longer like I have, like I said, on and off this winter. But anyway, so I bought in the kit, this is Viva Sun. I see them, they're on Amazon. I think they're a pretty big company. But I bought this kit because it was a good deal. But I bought these heat mats. The trays that I use are just regular 1020 trays, obviously. And so these mats are made for 1020 trays. And they plug in to the controller, the thermostat here. And so you can set this for whatever you want your temperature to be. It'll read Fahrenheit and Celsius. You plug your heat mat into it. And then there's also a temperature probe here. So this helps this monitors the temperature and helps the thermostat regulate the temperature in the mat. I don't know how necessary all of that is, but like I said, I got a really good deal on it, so I said, oh, that sounds like a great idea. It can't hurt. And I think it does help keep the temperatures more consistent. But as you know, Mother Nature's temperatures aren't very consistent, and things have done fine for years, so probably not really necessary, but maybe it does help speed things up a little bit, make plants stronger. So all I do is I just take this kind of in the center of the tray, in the center here, and then just kind of put it across about halfway. And so that'll monitor the temp, give the feedback up to the controller. Well, that's not good. Up to the controller, and help regulate the mat temp. I've got these set at 80 because peppers and tomatoes like it really warm, especially to get the seeds going. So there you have it. And I've got another set for the other tray. I've only ever had 2 sets, and I've gotten by. I usually use it on the really warm weather, warm temperature loving plants, and I don't use it on anything else. There are some plants, won't go into that now, but there are some plants that you don't want to use a heat mat. They don't germinate near as well with the extra heat, but these actually do, so I'm going to use it on these. I just took the tray out of these wooden trays. I bought all this stuff. I have tons of it, boxes and boxes. It was a pallet full at an Amish auction one year for $5. That's the trays and all the cell trays and these wooden trays, all these 3-inch pots. I mean, it's just tons of stuff. And I mean, I bid $5 and got it. So most of it's in my barn loft, but I use it all. I use the same stuff over and over again. I'll never run out, I guess is the way to put it. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and plant the other tray, get it set up like this, water them down real well, and again, we'll see where we're at in a week or so. And one thing I didn't say about the lights, but I should, you don't need lights to start these plants. These have just been on for the blueberry plants. You don't really need lights until you get the plants up to, and they have their first like cotyledon leaves, their first leaves. But these will go on and off, and it's okay if they're under the lights. It doesn't hurt anything. They just don't necessarily need them. Although there are some plants that you don't, seeds that you start, you don't bury the seeds, you put them on top of the soil, and they do need light to germinate, but this isn't them. So just thought I'd be sure that you understood that. So this is day 4. Just kind of giving everything a good spritz. You can see there's several sprouts. There's some turnips in the back, a couple of things of kale. I think the other 3 cells that I planted of kale probably won't sprout. They're older seeds. Didn't really expect them to, but you never know. You can get surprised. And then a couple of things of cucumbers, picklers, and slicing cucumbers there. Obviously, what you try to do when you plant these is plant things that are going to sprout approximately at the same time, as much as you can, just because once they get up and start, you know, growing the leaves, and like these are already there, but the cucumbers aren't quite there yet, you want to turn off the bottom heat. And of course, when you turn off the bottom heat, that's not going to help the rest of things sprout that haven't sprouted already. Over here are more of the tomatoes and peppers. I think all of these are tomatoes and peppers. And you're just starting to get a little bit of sprouting there. But all those sprout about, oh, there's some more and more there. But all these sprouted about the same time. They do love bottom heat. Some of these over here don't necessarily have to have the bottom heat. So I'll probably turn that off in the next day or so. But anyway, just thought I'd give you an update. So day 4, things are already sprouting out. And the other thing with any of them that sprout, and if you leave the bottom heat on it longer than you really need to, that will cause the plants to get leggy. The bottom heat will cause them to grow up faster and not give them enough time to develop, so they'll get more leggy. You can fix that most of the time, but you don't want to leave your bottom heat on very long after you start getting good sprouting. So it's been a week. Started these seeds 7 days ago, so I just thought I would end this video by showing you kind of where things are right now. These first 4 rows are jalapeno and cayenne peppers. Obviously, peppers are one of the last, as you can see, last to sprout. But the cucumbers, 2 rows of cucumbers there, these right here, and you can see my hand for kind of reference. They're not very big, but they were really the first to sprout out. And then these 2 are kale. Those 3 were planted as well, but they were older seeds, so they're probably not viable. So we'll see. I'll leave them in there for a while. But the next row is broccoli. Nothing has sprouted. Well, there's just a barely, I don't know if you can see that, but just starting to sprout. And those are turnips, and then the back row is cabbage, which has just recently come out. And then this other tray is mainly tomatoes. The first 2 rows here are peppers, bell peppers, obviously not sprouting yet, but then several different types of tomatoes, and they've just started in the last couple of days to sprout. So there you go. Alright, so that's it. Now we're just really waiting for the peppers to sprout, keeping everything watered, obviously, usually a couple times a day, and keeping them moist, and waiting for the rest of of the other things to sprout out. And then once the tomatoes start getting their first set of true leaves, which will be 4 leaves technically, then we'll start transplanting those into bigger containers. The reason you do that is each time you transplant a tomato, you can plant it deeper, bury more of the stem, and the stem will actually start forming roots. Whatever's in contact with the soil will start forming roots, and that really gives your tomatoes a super strong root system, helps everything grow obviously better, higher production in tomatoes, that kind of thing. I'll probably show you that in a future video as we kind of go along. Obviously the growing season's about 6 to 8 weeks away, so none of this is going into the ground at least until then, but we'll still be managing it as we go. But that kind of wraps up seed starting for this year. Thanks for watching. Hit the subscribe button if you don't already. Give us a thumbs up and leave us a comment or questions in that section. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you soon.